a lot of people think validators are earning an extreme amount of revenue. And the program has grown, right? And the price has gone down, right? Don't do this. We don't want you to do this. But if you do, there's a financial repercussion. That emotional part that I was referring to earlier. Yeah. And I'm not going to let Kusama down, man. You know, if everyone's moving out, right, it'll just be me and Yako.
Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Claudio and this is CryptoChain, and today I'm joined by Will, who goes by the alias of Paradox in the Kusama and Polkadot community, who happens to run a validator, but he's doing a lot more than that. He's also part of the council on Kusama, although we don't need a council anymore, but he's going to share with us what OpenGov is all about. He's also going to talk about the life as a validator, because we don't know enough about that, just to get an insight on what they have to put through each and every day when it comes to being a validator, especially in rough times like these in the bear market. So Will, thank you very much for taking the time to join. Welcome. So if you just want to give a quick background about yourself, like what got you to start in Kusama and Polkadot to begin with?
Oh, okay. Well, nice to be here, Claudio. Thank you very much. I started my journey into Polkadot during that last bull market, right? I'm not a finance guy, right? And I had a family member who was talking a lot about blockchain and stuff like that from an investment perspective. But I am a tech guy, right? Computer science graduate. And for me, I wanted to refresh my memory on tech, on the tech, right? Yeah. Because where I last looked at it, may not be favorable. I'm not very into Bitcoin, right? I know what it is, right? Technically, but I didn't believe in it as much as those maxis do. Ethereum was more something I was more inclined to because of the smart contracts and the ability. I saw it as a platform, right? Yeah. A programming platform, but there were some things that I didn't think worked well. I didn't think it scaled well and stuff like that. And so I decided to refresh my knowledge on the entire industry, given that my family member was discussing it so often in like our group chats and stuff like that. So when I looked at everything, there was the platform changed, right? The portfolio changed in the probably 5 years. And I found that Polkadot was, in my opinion, and still is, the best platform in terms of scale, in terms of what it intends to do, how it intends to do it. And the Kusama model was actually very, very interesting because it lends to high quality on Polkadot, right? It's a built-in quality system. And this is just how I see it, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily accurate or the way others see it, With that, I joined others, right? I wouldn't call the names, right? Because I'm exploring. And the type of feedback that I got in the Polkadot ecosystem, the caliber of responses, those sort of things, it was in line with, my expectations or what I would like to see. And yeah, I stuck there, and here I am now, almost actually more than 2 years later.
Wow. So yeah. Would you say you're more active on Kusama than you are on Polkadot?
Oh, definitely. The reason for that is just that Kusama is where the exciting stuff. Well, this is, again, it's an opinionated view. I see Kusama as being where the innovation happens, right? Where the new things come out, where the decisions are made. I see Polkadot as just copying it, right? Okay, so we tested XCM, we tested parachains, and then Polkadot adopts it. So Polkadot is very quiet in that sense. We see governance drama happens on both chains, right? Yeah. right? So that is something that, yeah, but I think that like a lot of precedent is set on Kusama in some regard. But when we go to Polkadot, it looks at the precedent, but it's a little more conservative to the specific needs of Polkadot. So, I mean, really, if you want the lively area and you're into the tech and the excitement, Kusama, it lends to Kusama. That's just my point of view.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I got the same feeling as you ever since I heard about Kusama. This was back like in the early 2020 when I first heard of it. It was very, very early days. And a guy in my community basically said, hey, Claudia, did you check out this video of Dr. Gavin Wood, who's building Polkadot? Look, he launched Kusama and it's actually tradable right now. You can find it on KuCoin. It was worth like $1 something at the time, not financial advice. Anyway, we wish it was still that. We were still in those days, let's say, and we knew what we know now. But I ignored it because of the bear market. And I thought, I don't know if this is something that I want to get into. It's a testing ground because if you remember in the early days, people used to think of Kusama as a simple testnet, kind of like Ropsten on Ethereum. So it was seen as no value, but yet it had a valuable coin, which was trading, right? And so what made you, how did you realize the difference? How did you know that this is really a staging network and not really a testing network, and that it will eventually, it will eventually come to grow probably close to as big as Polkadot?
Oh, well, in terms of understanding it as a canary network or however it is marketed, it's obvious, I can read the wording, I could understand the concept, I know why there is the need for it, from a software development perspective, because not when you put something out to test, there's a limited range of use cases that really come about from, can you go on the test net? Can you test this on West End for us?
Yeah.
But when you have a real world economic environment where people are more or less organically testing, you bring out more of those bugs, right? And by bringing out these bugs, you enhance the quality of the other product, which is Polkadot. Yeah. And I have, this is not theoretical. We have had practical examples of Kusama enhancing the stability and quality of Polkadot, right? But at the same time, if you want to be on the forefront of that technology, you need to position yourself in Kusama. It's not that, I'm not also invested in Polkadot. I think it's a good, it serves a purpose, right? And some may think it's a greater purpose, but really you align your personality, your traits, your expectation, your excitement, with one of these chains. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the Kusama validator challenges. So you've started your validator, you said, in the bull market. So I'm assuming 2021, right?
Yes.
Now let's talk about what is actually needed for a validator to earn some sort of profit to be able to pay off all of the costs, assuming you don't have your own dedicated rack space. Let's assume you're using VPS and you're renting VPS. So you're paying like a monthly fee. Let's assume that, right? So assuming paying on that off and also having some sort of profit, as well as maintenance time and everything, like what would you actually need to be profitable on Kusama as a validator? How many Kusama would need to be staked, or what is the plan? Like what would it?
Oh, okay. Well, the economics of validation differ depending on the individual and their scale, right? It's not a one glove fit all. So let me describe some of those. You mentioned if you own your own rack space.
Yeah.
To own your own rack space, right, your monthly fee may reduce, right, depending on your scale, depending on how many things, but you need to purchase the hardware that you're running these things on, and that's an upfront capital cost. And your monthly fee may decrease, but you still have that upfront cost to recoup, right, or to recover. Correct. Right? So this needs to be factored in. And I think a lot of people, in their projections, you need to be really, when we look at cost is all in. That's how I see it, right? So for people who have staff, the cost goes up because you have to pay that staff, right? You don't just look at that rental cost. And in terms of looking at number of hours, contact time, it varies as well, right? So I just want those variables thrown up, right, at front, right? We need to also gauge our expectations and look at the market and, be fair, because our return comes from commission, right?
Yeah.
Comes from the commission. I don't include the self-stake because you could self-stake, you can gain your nominating rewards independent of validation. I could just, if I didn't want to do all these technical things, I could have staked with someone else, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at the commission. The commission needs to be balanced so that it's fair to the nominators and fair to the validators to earn something. Per the analysis that we have done so far, because there was that system collator bounty, right? And we looked at some of the costs and so on. I think we estimated somewhere between, again, different people, different costs. We went in at a very low value of $300 US dollars per month per validator to cover all of these costs. But there was a lot of debate about it, right? But the idea is that we don't want them, like if there's a minimum commission, which there is on Kusama, right? There's one set at 10%. It shouldn't be enriching. If you want to go beyond that, the system allows you to increase your commission, but you increase it and you try to justify it with some, hey, I'm a better validator because of this. And you should give me that little extra, that delta. I earn it. Yeah. So if you were asking the figure, I provided it to you, and I hope the dynamics are appreciated. I can probably speak more to that if you wish, but I'll give you an opportunity.
Yeah. So you're saying around 300 per month is the average cost of a validator.
It's very debatable, but it's what was agreed. We came to consensus on 300, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, how are you finding it? Like, let's start in 2021 when you first started your validator. So let's say it was around 300 back then. How did you find the return on investment back then, considering the number of people in the space, wanting to stake, learning about Kusama? Kusama was the thing back then, right? Because in 2021 is when everyone was talking about Kusama, especially before the parachain auction started. Because I know that's based on my channel. I know that's what most of the audience were interested in. So I'm curious, like, what was it like in 2021 when you started? If you could please share some figures.
Sure. Well, I'm not prepared with those historical figures, but what I can say is that when I started in 2000, back in 21, I started in the 1KV, right? The 1,000 validator program. And I would get a few rotations in the active set every month. And I would have a max commission of 10%, right?
Right.
I would earn probably 1 or 2 KSM per month per validator, and you're allowed 2. Right. So, it was not that great, huge enriching returns. A lot of people think validators are earning an extreme amount of revenue. One validator on Kusama right now that's at 10% commission, I think should earn about let's say between 8 to 10 Kusama per month.
Yeah,
right?
But we're talking about a big validator, like a corporation, ultimately.
Well, that's if you have a validator that runs every day, 24 hours for a month, right? At 10% commission, you'll get 8 to 10 KSM per month. And that's around 300, right? So it's not super enriching.
Yeah. But in 2001, it was a lot.
The price varied. Right. So, I mean, if you got 1 KSM, wow, that could have been pretty good. But the 1 KV at that point in time, you weren't getting as many rotations in the active set you would get probably, I don't remember the figures offhand now, it's so long ago, but it was so few because, so many people are interested and so very few nominations at that point in time. the program has grown, right? But so, and the price has gone down, right? The economics has gone down. So it still isn't at a point where I can say any individual validator is being enriched. Where someone may benefit is if they have like 50 on Kusama, or if you're on Polkadot's a whole different game in terms of the economics.
Right.
If you're on Polkadot, even at 1%, that's 10 dot per day, right? So that's like, let's say 30 days, 10, right? 300 dot per month. That's good, right?
Yeah, but what's the minimum requirement to set it up? That's the big question.
Oh, the minimum requirement to set it up. If we want to go into details into the life of a validator, do you want to go there, right? You want to, right?
If you want to summarize it, maybe.
Okay, I'll try.
Because I'm sure it's a lot of detail to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. So many people think, you run this machine, you set it up, you hide it in a corner or something, right? It requires, one, you need to have some level of technical skills, right? Of course, right? You don't need to be some savant or guru, right? You need to know what to do and how to get it done and how to get it done quickly. And these things will be how to set up, how to diagnose, how to restart, update. All of these things should be at the back of your hand, right? To support so that's getting up and running. Once you're up and running, you need to maintain, right? And you need to analyze. And these are where things like setting up Grafana, which is like a dashboard that you can use to monitor your resources, good alerting, so that if there are any problems, you get
text message or something.
Yeah, correct. Yes, I actually have that set up on my phone. I use something called PagerDuty that receives the alert and transmits it to me, right? So we call that whole thing like a monitoring alerting stack, because it's like multiple programs and applications working together to solve that common purpose, right? So in addition to that, you need to keep up to date. You need to know what's going on. You need to have your hand on the pulse of the chain. Right? Because there are issues. Issues arise, and I think you may have been within your span, seen some of these with like disputes on the chain. There was that mass slashing some time ago, right? And those who respond quickly can mitigate against the issues. And this is something that, I'm proud to say that I'm on the front line. I would like to say all of the time, right? But I don't know if there's an exception, right? But I would like to say that when there are issues, I'm at that front line all of the time. I'll say it, right? And because of that, I'm able to mitigate issues quickly. And I also try my best to look out for my fellow validator, and I'll shout out some tweets. If I don't see some of them responding, I'll DM, and it goes likewise. And during those times, Claudio, it's tough.
Hectic. I can imagine.
Yeah. Like my guys,
I need to ask you something just before we move on to the next bit. With regards to availability, so what happens if you're on holiday with your family for say 3 weeks and something goes down? Do you have a backup plan to maybe reach out to a friend who has the same access as you have to your validator to be able to restart it, reinitiate it, or maybe fix the bug if there's a bug?
Sure. This is something that I identified as a gap, right? And because of that, I hired staff. Right. So there are 3 guys in my team, and opportune time, because I was just about to speak about that. So in times of problems, we, like, as I was mentioning before, we would work shifts, right? And we're in different time zones, so it's easy, because sometimes when you work shift and you're in that night zone, your attention decreases. Right. So we are fortunate to have a team, and all team members have access. And to be fair, during that first year when I was doing everything by myself, it was a big strain, because I couldn't go. Every time I went on, I would say, a vacation or any trip, I would take my computer with me. I had a shell on my phone, so I could remotely do things. And it was during those formative years of Kusama as well, parachains just launched and, little things would happen. But once I got staff, it became a lot easier for me. And everyone's doing what they have to do. There were some alerts that came in very early this morning while I was asleep, right? Wow. And those guys tended to it. It was false positive, right? Because we have some external monitoring, making sure like a system outside of the system pinging in and making sure everything's working. And if it doesn't, it alerts us. And those guys tended to it. And I just saw the report today. So I can actually sleep, right? Yes. So it's, so maybe the idea that you presented is not far-fetched, but there needs to be trust because you're letting someone into your system.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Right. But I trust my guys, background checks, know them personally. There is some history of a relationship. And so far it has been more than a year and everything is going well.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's interesting. Yeah, because that's one of the issues that I was thinking about myself. Like it's okay to run a validator, but then you have to think of the backup plan because me and my friend are also planning to start one up. And he is a full stack developer, and he has a full-time job. So he told me, Claudio, look, I can't promise you that I'm going to be available 24/7. Imagine I'm in a meeting and something crashes and then we could get slashed. So talking about slashing, like what's the leeway what leeway do you have to fix a problem before you get slashed as a validator?
Well, yes, it's good that you raised the topic of slashing. A slashing occurs for multiple reasons, right? And the degree of your slash is commensurate with the action that caused it, right? So if we look at offline, right? If I went offline, 10% of the validator in total needs to also be offline before the slashing begins.
Okay.
Right. So isolated offline time is not a huge problem, right? It just means that you won't be earning and your nominators won't be earning as well. Yeah. Right. There are other ways that you can get slashed, but I think most of the others are due to some sort of negligence. Like if it is that you restore 2 servers or you try to go high availability.
Yeah.
And due to your high availability, you have 2 servers running the same keys. This can cause something called an equivocation, right? And that is a slash. And depending on how many times you equivocate, how many times these both machines do the same thing, the slash continues, right? So. Right. Yeah, so that is one. And there's the big slash, which I've never really seen occurred. So the equivocation has occurred several times, right? I attribute that to the IT guys trying to be too IT, right? Yeah, man, if one server goes down, the next one kicks in, or I want to do a cutover and have no downtime, no restart time. Come on, understand the protocol and the reasons why, right? But there's the big slash where someone's trying to manipulate data on a chain or do something extremely malicious, and I have never seen one of those occur. And I think
so once you're aware of the consequences, so
yes, and I think you hear it quite often. A slash is really something that is like a disincentive. That's the proof of stake system. Yeah. Don't do this. We don't want you to do this. But if you do, there's a financial repercussion, and that's a slash.
Okay, wow, that's interesting. Now let's talk about the number of nodes as well. So I know that as a validator, you could have multiple nodes, right? You could have yourself, like you're running the paranodes validator, but you've got paranodes 01, 02, 03. So can you explain that? Like, does each one of those have an individual cost on its own, like of around 300 per month? Or is it 300 per month across all of your nodes?
It scales, like, so in my case, because staffing is an expense, a large expense, right? So I wouldn't consider myself the standard, because many of these validators operate by themselves as one-man shows, right? But but I think, you know, to the point that you made, it's, you know, I don't want to bring down, you know, a concept because, you know, I want to support my fellow validators. But
Yeah.
in my opinion, I think you need support, right? You need some support mechanism, even if that's you and a colleague working together,
Yeah.
right? Right. So, but in my case, I've hired staff. So my costs don't align to like $300 per month, right? I don't want to give like an open book here, right?
Yeah.
But right. But yeah. So if it is that you're operating like 30 or something like that, so that's like 9,000 a month.
Wow.
That can be it sounds great, right? But then when you go and you spend like 50,000 or 40,000 US on servers,
Yeah.
right? You know, you're still, and then if you weren't making a profit for several months into this bear market,
Yeah.
right? You're already at a negative and you're trying to get to a positive. So you know, it takes some time to be you need to be sustaining these returns.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And to also recover your capital expenses. What I can say is that I have not reached the break-even point, right? And I do pay a lot of these things out of my own personal earnings.
Yeah.
Still.
So I have to ask you then, do you sustain this from running the Polkadot validators? Do you find those more profitable right now, or are those also running at a loss?
Well, my Polkadot validators, I only have one. It's in the 1KV. I don't have it on all the time. But in terms of return from the 1KV, I would say it is positive, right? Okay. Right. It's more than 300 a month, certainly. But you want to be active, right? When you're connected to the ecosystem, I do feel that way, right? I do feel very connected to the ecosystem. You want to be a part of it, and having a node that's always active. There's a financial incentive, yes, but there's also a sentiment, right? And I want paranodes to be like Yako, you know, you go on Polkadot or Kusama, you can't miss him, right?
Yeah.
I don't think, I certainly know that my contribution is not at his level, but you know, if I can be a mini Yako, I don't need a gazillion nodes, right? You know, just give me a few and recognize that, you know, and that helps me stay within the ecosystem. That'll be cool. Dreams
come true. Cool.
Yeah.
And we'll hopefully get to a point where, you know, you could say that, yeah, it is now okay to run a validator on Kusama again, you know, so we'll have to see how the market reacts and how things will go. But have you ever thought of this like black swan scenario? Let's say things go south on Kusama, nobody wants to stay on it anymore, everyone is just thinking about Polkadot. Like, what is your backup plan in that case? Like, are you just going to decommission everything on Kusama that you have and then just maybe migrate over that investment that you have in Kusama over to Polkadot?
I mean, you mentioned it, and it is something that I've considered. I can't speak from an economic standpoint because, you know, it's not a very logical standpoint. But you know, I think I'll stick around in Kusama. You know, if the guys go and I could get more opportunity, if I could earn something in Polkadot that. So you were asking if I could take the economics from Kusama and move over to Polkadot. Yeah, I would say maybe the opposite. If I have economics in Polkadot, can it sustain me in Kusama? Right? You know, I look at it the other way. Yeah. Right. Yeah, because, you know, listen, it's economics is a part of it. People need to work. They need to earn a living, right? Yeah, they do. Yeah. The servers need to be repaid for. Yeah. But there's also that that emotional part that I was referring to earlier. Yeah. And I'm not going to let Kusama down, man. You know, if everyone's moving out, right, it'll just be me and Yako, right? So I'll get like 500 validators or something. Yeah. No, I was just raising that point because, you know, we've seen lately, and I'm sure you agree with this, is
the number of parachain teams migrating off Kusama and going to Polkadot, abandoning Kusama, and I think it could have a negative impact. Like that obviously brought like that negative connotation of the Canary network that we may not need it. You know, obviously Kusama and Polkadot will always need each other because of the nature of it. But when it comes to the parachain teams, I agree that maybe in some cases they may not need a Canary network. And the reason why they did it to begin with was for a financial reason, to get money on the Canary coin and to get money on the main coin on Polkadot. But obviously it's not always the case, right? It depends. Some of them maybe did it for a technical reason, but this migration was a concern. So, you know, I think in general, people in the community were like, oh, Kusama is dead, you know, Polkadot is where it's at. Exchanges are supporting Polkadot and not Kusama. So, you know, like, what's your take on that? What do you think about that aspect of it?
Well, I've never been much of a tokenomics guy, right? Right. I'm very technical. I see the tech more than I see these dollar signs, right? So yeah, I mean, listen, if there's a technical reason for you to move to Polkadot, right? Go ahead, right? What I don't expect is that you are going to brick your chain on Polkadot, right? Without doing some due diligence testing, at least in Rococo or something like that, right? You need figure that out. Yeah, I don't want to see, because if you notice referenda, right, there's like a slew of them, more than a handful of chains being bricked and asking to be unbricked, right? Yeah. So please, you know, if you're doing that, I'm speaking again from a software perspective, even though you ask economic. But yes, I want to see the high quality on Polkadot, and chains, do your due diligence, right? Don't brick, right? Yeah. So that's one aspect. But in terms of the economics and Kusama is dead, it's the thing that Kusama and Polkadot are relay chains, right? What I think brings the ecosystem out, where the users interact, would be with the parachains. Yeah. And if the platform keeps going as it is, right, we will start to see new projects coming in, and that's what we want to see new projects coming in. Yeah. And as these sunset and move on, we should have like a new batch coming in, right? And I think that's where the focus is, right? When there should always be a batch of old, some going out, right? Some going to college, and some coming back into high school, right?
That's very true. That's a good concept.
Yeah. So, you know, and I hope to see that maybe the market is not speaking to that, right? But I was always told by, you know, those who are in this a much longer time than me, that this is the time for builders. Yeah, you know, absolutely. So let's, you know, that's the thing. I don't know how other programmers feel about it, but I mean, Substrate's where it's at for me, you know, where what I think is the solution, right? Is it that Rust is too difficult for you guys? But that's one aspect. But I think there's an economic aspect as well, because the volume of liquidity, you know, you get a lot more in Ethereum, right? You go where the hype is at times, you know, so maybe there are other factors that are driving developers to other chains